Going on, everybody? Chris here on a beautiful Saturday after Thanksgiving weekend. Nice and contented from a lot of turkey, honestly. With another awake stream. Um, this is where we just shoot bowls. We just we just come up with whatever we think of that's going on in the world. It's more of a discussion rather than a seminar, even though I do carry the discussion. Welcome, John. Today, we're going to be discussing poison red pills, and it's more or less an analysis of the kinds of ideas that I see coming out from those that I agree with. Hi, St. John. Welcome to the show, man. And I honestly have to say that we're doing much better ever since the emergence of the Donald Trump Make America Great Again movement. I think a lot of great work was done by voices such as Michael Savage, Alex Jones, Ben Shapiro, Dr. Jordan Peterson, and now we have it's the black conservatives getting their hats in the race, throwing their hats in. Um, but at a certain point, we're limited by what's been a really bad educational system for the longest time, as well as, oh, sorry, but the camera's moving a little bit. Let me just move it more towards my face here. It is deciding to twist for some reason. Um, and that leads to what I call poison red pills. These are either conscious or unconscious examples of a lack of understanding on how to seek truth, how to use logic, how to be patient, and how to be objective. And this isn't so much a rant as it is a constructive criticism. Oh, okay. Tina, good to have you here. Good. All right. So, in terms of what we see in the current countercultural paradigm, like we don't like what the left has been doing. We know that the left is going purely insane for the past few years, if not more. Or maybe they've always been kind of crazy and they're just showing their true colors. But we have to now, thanks to these complete indoctrinated people and selfish people, we have to somehow get through to them what is the right way to do things, why Western civilization is important. Hi, Margaret. Welcome to the show. And we have to do it in a way that doesn't stress us out, doesn't make us look like fools, is the truth so that we don't spread any error, and at the same time is hard enough of truth to essentially get through to people and you know not draw a line in the sand, while at the same time being charitable about it. uh, and there are a lot of people on the right that may not be the staunchest of Christians, but I think they're running into the brick wall of that's basically the call for evangelical perfection. I mean, to spread the truth with love, not compromising while at the same time being merciful. That's the walk of the gospel, isn't it? I mean, that's what the saints did. And what we have is, because of our vast accumulated wealth of knowledge on the sciences, we have newer ways to look at truth, to look at how people can be broken and hopefully how people can be cured, and look at things from many different angles and possibilities on how brokenness can affect people and affect one another, especially in the realm of psychology. You know, now unfortunately, and even in psychology, there's a lot. of stuff that's left out in the discussion because I think there's some bias as to what people like to see in psychology. There's only a few theories. People are still trying to use Freud and Hegel in an attempt to push their agenda of utopiana, and they refuse to look at any of the other commentators on psychology, including commentators that combine spirituality and psychology. That's what Blessed Fulton Sheen was trying to do on his show. If you don't know who he is, um, please check him out. But Archbishop Fulton Sheen saw the need to go into these areas with the light of God, and he was starting to do a great job with that. Now it's our turn to pass that torch. But we can't be helping anyone if we give half truths or complete or just errors mixed in with truth. And you can't give what you don't have, right? So if you got something wrong in your self or in your ideology, people see right through that. People who are messed up usually want excuses to continue in their messed up behavior, and they look for hypocrisies or flaws in the critics. They want to shoot the messenger to get rid of the message. Now, that's nothing new, okay? That's going to happen regardless. But we still have to do our part to try to be the best messengers and have the best messages we possibly can so that we can be as blameless as possible and reach those that want to be helped. And hopefully, those that don't want to be helped get real with themselves. So, what is the first poisoned red pill that we have to address? Okay, some of these red pills are for our foundation, while others are for evangelization. And I think both are important. This is a foundational red pill, and this is a premise of a lot of my talks, which is in order to fight globalism, we need Christian localism. I don't know if localism is a real term. I'm making it up to kind of be in spite of the globalist agenda. But Christian localism, or distributionism as Thomas Jefferson thought of it, is the very real fact that in a person's life, even with the age of social media, you live in a particular sphere. You go to the grocery store, you go to your workplace, and you live in a neighborhood. You may go to your local church, and you may switch things up a little bit in terms of the essentials and entertainment, but more or less you'll stay around, and it depends on urban, if you're a city dweller or you're in the country, but you stay around a particular radius of influence. And in that radius of influence, there are many people, but at the same time, not to the point of there being the entire world within your fingers. And thanks to the advent of TV and electronic gadgetry, we're too connected to the point where we, in our psyches, have been programmed into thinking globally. Although it's important to be informed, I'm not saying don't check out the news, right? Here on Thomas the Hermit channel, we need to keep up with things so we know what to pray for. So we do that already. So I'm guilty as charged. I'm trying to turn that energy into something positive. And maybe that's a good way to wean ourselves off this issue by engaging in groups like this. So those that are here, Margaret, I think, is new, relatively speaking. Not saying you're brand spanking new, but new. But John, Tina, and I are trying to redirect that energy towards prayer so we're not just yapping all the time about the woes of the world. So that's one thing to do, but it's still an issue because the the gateway into Christian localism is establishing the mystical city on the hill from the Holy Gospel. And what does that mean? That means you take such ownership of your life in love, you let God transform your life and transform those around you to the point where you are attached to love being the um, point of your existence, which is true. Now, we haven't done a good job exploring that because we're so messed up, but there are particular avenues and elements of a life of love. We need an artistic mind to build this foundation. That's why I have these beautiful pictures here. Now, the one to the left of me and the one up above me is just for aesthetic purposes. The one to the left of the one above me, the top left, is the Garden of Adam and Eve. And that I'm not going to use just for aesthetic purposes. I'm going to talk about it. But there are certain things that have been lost. Like, for example, there was a time where neighborhoods were open. The doors weren't shut, and people could go. Your neighbors could go in and out. The neighborhood children could go in and out and play. There was great hospitality in many places. People knew who each other was, and the idea of Sunday off and Saturday as much as possible, the idea of sitting in silence, maybe reading a book or spending some time with family, as in going out for a fishing trip or just taking a walk, um, or going on a bicycle ride. What happened with the COVID lockdown, I found great good coming out of it for those that wanted it. Even in my family, just people being forced to not move around all the time. Some people took it very well. Yes, some people are taking it horribly still, but some people took it very well, and I think God was working through them because you saw the peace that came from just detaching from the constant busybodiness. So it was pretty cool to see that happening. Well, let's not waste that opportunity, please. Let's not go back to, let's have a new normal that counters the global new normal that they're trying to push down our throats. And that is what I'm trying to talk about. Now, that is the core of Western civilization. Simple love is the core of Western civilization, along with what the gospel says that defines love. It's supposed to be defined. It's not an emotion. It's an action. It's a disposition. It can have feelings, but the Beatitudes: love of enemy, love of neighbor, mercy, charity, truth, courage, following the Ten Commandments. Um, that's what it is, and this comes to the second red pill: is our ideas of being loving and holy are messed up too. A lot of people, I say, even those that are interested in this, are trying to overextend themselves into different groups, and they're not focusing on their daily duties and their family, and really starting with the home and moving out. They're trying to, like, there's a little bit of trying to prove yourself going on there, and I even see that politically. I think it's wonderful that there's rallies. I think it's wonderful that people are getting more involved politically, from what I'm seeing. But again, this change still needs to start with those around us and with ourselves. And that's very important, because if we don't have that sense of peace and grounding, then we will not be able to disarm the restlessness of the left. Because believe it or not, in a very warped way, many people who believe in Utopiana also want peaceful days. They're just so lost that they think it's from big government and forcing everything to be peaceful. And that doesn't end very nicely, I'm sure. um, but it's the ape of God. Satan is the ape of God, right? So of course Satan would create communism and dictatorships to try to make a fake peace, right? Instead of free will and choice being how we come to a better world, not a perfect world, a better world with more happiness. and how that's how we defeat greed by implementing charity. It's always, by the way, it's always much more heartfelt, and it touches more people when they see that you give out of the goodness of your heart and not money thrown at you from a government bread line. I mean, it's like, oh, you gave this to me because you were forced. Well, whatever, take my welfare check. But if someone out of the goodness of their heart says, "Here, sir, I just want you to have this," I mean, that's the difference between Christmas and communism. I mean, right there. Um, but we need to up the ante when it comes to our behavior and our example and our ideals. Um, so our ideas of holiness, we struggle with that here in the HHL. We pray a lot, but it doesn't mean you change who you are. Okay, grace does not mean that you are changed into a different person. Okay, it means that you become the best version of yourself. That's what God does to the soul. And so I see people with a lot of fake humility and piety, and people that force conservatism, and that they try to like counter the left with their own anger and passion. I think that that's proof that we don't really know how powerful it is to be our own vulnerable, true selves, that are patient and trusting in providence, still active, but still themselves. Okay. And why is that important? Because there is a beauty to each personality created in the universe, and everyone has their own gifts and talents. And much of the brokenness in our society comes from forcing people through the educational system, through broken, dysfunctional families, through government, forcing everyone into one mold. Okay. Now, that is bad because that in and of itself leads to kind of a one world way of thinking. Um, if you're trying to force everyone to be a number and not themselves, then even if you're on the right, you're kind of you're giving ammunition to this idea that we have nothing to offer. Because insanely enough, I think the left believes that they're pushing for something that looks like a Christian utopia in their minds, while at the same time promoting their own slavery and captivity and destruction of their individualism. Now, it's sad that the people are this sick and deluded to not even realize this, but that's the way it is. That being said, we have to make sure we have to make sure we're showing light that conquers their excuses and their hatred for us as much as we can. So I think we need to dial it back on the idea that politics is everything that Western civilization is about, and even community. Okay, the community is made up of individuals with their own problems, their own strengths, their own weaknesses, their own good things about them and bad. And even in situations, America is a hub of experimenting with communities. If you look at different religious experimental communities, of course, we have the Amish being the biggest one in the States currently, and the Mennonites. And I guess the Mormons count too. Even in, very religious or hardcore conservative communities, there were serious issues because they got too extreme and they became very rigid and prudish. Um, and people got disinterested. I did a stream on anarchism where they had somewhat of a religious anarchist experiment, and people left the town or became disinterested because they were trying to force themselves into some kind of unnatural thing where you're not yourself. You're trying to like everyone needs to be super equal and always doing, some kind of timeshare thing. They couldn't own property. The human spirit wants to be their own person. Okay, the human spirit wants to use the gifts God gave them, lift people around up them, lift people up around themselves in the unique way they are capable of. Now that we're so messed up and globalized, some people have skewed ideas of that, and I'll get into that very soon. But that's the truth, and so you could have a community, just because we're in a time where everything's about to go socialist, or hopefully not, um, we still need to be prepared for enhancing even our own ideas of community, because there were thousands of years before the craziness of the 20th century. There were thousands of years of different traditional cultures, different Christian cultures, and even different Catholic communities and Orthodox communities. Getting more relevant to my own personal life, that had their own issues. Things weren't perfect and had their own corruption, had their own problems. And that's just the nature of the fallen human race game. People are cranky, people make mistakes, people still do bad things, even if they know it's wrong. That's the Adam and Eve story. You know, that's the problem. So even within those communities, we need people pushing the boundaries in charity and humility, um, further and further upwards. That's what, and in doing that, we lift those up further as well. You can even see that in prayer groups. Like here, I'm seeing that older prayer warriors, veteran prayer warriors that have been with us from the beginning, are growing in wisdom and whatever else. And then people that join are like, wow, this is really cool, and these people, I like what they're doing here. And we're pretty new. We're only a year and 2 months. We've grown a lot, but through our consistency, the Lord's really blessed us, and we've experimented and tinkered and gone through a lot of trials and tribulations. And who knows what it'll be 2 years from now. I can't wait to see it. I think we already have like a next generation of prayer warriors forming. We had the Facebook group, and then we had the YouTube group, and now we have people like Margaret Mary and Jenna and a few others, I believe. um, and they're up and coming, and that's just how it works. We try to lift each other up higher and higher. So let's say you have someone in a community that um, is, they're a great artist or a great musician, like Mozart, or maybe a great scientist or a great mystic. We need to be prepared to, if we don't want to repeat the same mistakes, we need to be prepared to see those that may challenge our ideas of normal as possible great people. We need to lower our pride as to anything that's strange or unusual. We need to take, with, as long as it isn't immoral, we need to be careful with people like those, because even in those conservative communities, a lot of people that later were appreciated were ostracized. Um, there could be problems. There could be people that are filled with pride. A lot of these communities, even without all the problems we have in the 20th century, there were a lot of problems with pride, where someone just wanted to use the image of of piety or of conservatism, and then they made big money off of it. We have all kinds of problems even today with scandalous pastors, right? In practically every denomination in the known world right now. Or we people just like the attention. We need to be ready for those issues, and that can ruin everything. Because who knows? Maybe some of these liberals were created by those same very people. The culture of the prude and the proud. Maybe a rebellious socialist was formed from people that were lukewarm or pride filled or fakers. if you look at, and of course, I don't want to blame everything on parents and authorities. We don't want to do that because everyone has free will. But if you look at the backstory of Nietzsche and Freud and some of these guys that came up with some strange ideas that led to the problems we have, they had some bad backgrounds with their families, and some of their families were religious, but clearly there was some animosity towards the particular religiosity of their parents and the culture they were in. So we need to be careful. We need to stay moderate. Okay. Um, so that's another red pill. Now here's my next point. I'm segueing into the next, unless anyone has anything to say on what I've said so far. But my next point is, okay, we've established that we need to constantly push ourselves in goodness, and we need to not look at politics as the end game. That's what I've said so far. That being said, you know, what is the deal with having a moderate slash merciful slash centrist view? Okay, that's where people come and say, well, Chris, you're being a bit of a, you're not this for the times such as these. We need some serious gusto here. We need to push hard against what's going on. We don't need to be talking about peace and being moderate and compassionate and all that. I understand, and that's why I'm bringing this up. Okay, here's the problem: the terminologies that are used by the liberals need to be redefined. And this is homework for everyone. We need to be intellectually and academically prepared by looking up various terms and defining them very clearly. Love needs to be defined very, very, very clearly. In fact, if anything, there are people writing books about what to say if a liberal says this, what to say if a Catholic tells you this, or a Protestant tells you this. We're getting all these apologetics for different things. But the basics of truth and love and right and wrong need to be looked at much deeper. Okay. I recommend you make a list of the following terms. The first is charity or love. Okay. We need to understand what that is. We need to be ready to explain it. And if we don't, then we can't answer this abused question. Most of these problems with the sexual evolution come from a lot of that. What is love, and problems with marriage, and problems with all kinds of things. There's love. There's the passage on love and on in the Bible, and there's also um, the charity defined by the church. The second is we have to understand mercy. Okay, mercy is extremely important, and unfortunately, Pope Francis is really, really making confusion with some of his comments about what mercy is and what divine mercy is. Okay, the basic definition of mercy in the dictionary is a good place to start. It's forgiving something that is wrong. Now, does that mean that that thing is not wrong anymore? No, it means you're forgiving it that's wrong. And also, when it comes to God and when it comes to many things that are really bad, you expect people to ask for forgiveness or to have a change of heart or something. Okay? So, that's another example. So we need to be very careful with this, and we need to be ready to explain that more than anything, because every beck and call and every corner you turn on these university campuses, they hit you with the "you hateful bigot," right? So that's might be more important than we realize. Okay, and of course, exuding a merciful disposition towards someone who's flipping out definitely helps. I think I'm actually seeing some pretty good responses when it comes to that. Actually, I was about to say, we need to be ready to be compassionate to people that persecute us and disagree with us and love them. Of course, not bagging down the truth, but I'm looking at, the response of the right to people that are, the woke SJW nut job, gaslighting, emotional people. They're pretty good, you know. And for what I've seen with Antifa, well, Antifa gets what they deserve because they're actual. That's you should protect the innocent. Antifa literally attacks children, elderly, and women. So I don't really have much tears to shed over them getting their butts beat every time they start something. They don't deserve the mercy, okay? But you may find this, that's on the street level. But you may find there are other people that are really problematic as well, like the die-hard elderly Democrat Biden supporters. A lot of those, you know, or the slippery liberal intellectual type. Those are the ones that you need to be ready for, and there are a lot more of those than we realize. And those are a big part of the swing vote, I believe, or a big part of the Democrat vote or liberal vote, whatever country you're in, leftist vote. And that's where you have to be ready because they love to play these little games going round and round circles. You have to define the terms. You have to shut them down. Don't go with the whole. Uh, don't immediately react to what they're saying, because in logic and debate they always say you have to define your terms. Lincoln Douglas debate. Check that out. Mercy, love needs to be defined. As well as look at the Book of Virtues, a great book to have to go through a lot of the important virtues. Um, so that's important because Christianity is not about centrism, democracy. Let's hear out the other side. There's something twisted about what we've done to that. Hearing out the other side was meant for policy, not morality. Check out the founding fathers. If you're still in this idea of we need to be compassionate to those and hear them out, hear out the communists, see if he has something good to say. I just try. They usually don't have something good to say. 99.9% of the times they don't. Okay, but there are quotes from John Adams and George Washington and Benjamin Franklin that were very, despite their masonry and they look. I think God used those men despite the great sin of Freemasonry, and yes, there's problems with that, and I'll discuss that for another time. But when you look at their quotes about why Christianity is important to have a republic, they out and out say, without Christianity, the republic falls to shambles. And it was very. I was at a patriotic rosary with those quotes, and it was very eye opening that the founding fathers were so adamant about Christian values. It's absolutely foundational to having a working republic. It only makes sense if you have people that are selfish and solipsistic and don't believe in objective truth, aren't considerate about their neighbor, don't want to sacrifice their own little temporal pleasures for the greater good or for their own good. Well, what kind of democracy is that? The whole point is to try to come to the best possible decision. And now we're not there anymore. So, kind of ineffective at that point. Um, so no, I don't believe in centrism on anything involving morality. I agree with what this rapper Bison Gray is doing. He's saying, look, I don't agree with homosexuality as a lifestyle. I'm not budging on that. Even if there are walkaway people calling him homophobic, he's like, welcome to the right. You're allowed to have your opinion, and I'm allowed to have mine. You can't censor me. Doesn't mean I'm going to hurt you or put you down or do anything that would make you feel belittled. If anything, we're supposed to do the opposite, but I'm not going to budge on it. I mean, if I think drug and alcohol recovery groups have a good spirit when it comes to that. All right, you feel for the person, you love them, but they're hurting themselves. That's how you should look at sin. All right. That's why we call Jesus the divine physician. That is the perfect angle in which it's all about perfection. If you get one thing wrong, you're off kilter, at least in terms of your ideology or how you see things. If you get another thing wrong, you're off kilter. Okay, that's the balance. The balance is to find the perfection in love and truth and virtue and aim for that. It is not fighting to see if the pro-choice people maybe have something nice to say. Maybe they have a point. I'm hearing some ridiculous things about some of the corporate pro-life companies. I mean, there's some corruption going on. That's the fake centrism and balance. There's a fake centrism and balance there that I am a completely against. I am for being unique, but you don't go outside of the bubble of this is right, the Ten Commandments. This is right, this is wrong. This is what love is, this is what it is. Okay, I've rambled on a lot about that. That's another red pill for you. John, you're writing this down? uh, thank God there's playbacks. I have a lot to say on this stuff today. Okay. Um, and now that I've covered that, that leads me to this guy that I criticized in my first trailer, meme analysis. Oh, looks like we have a little bit of comments from Tina. All right, so Tina says, when the sheep meet the goats, expect to buck heads. Absolutely. You know, um, that's true. Uh, Sugarcoating makes nothing good, rather is a form of twisting truth. Right. Tina's agreeing with me. And you'll find more likely than not that you generally don't need to yell or make a scene. It's usually from human weakness because we're impatient with people. We want them to get it. But just saying the truth will cut deep enough. If anything, often what I find is the devil wants you to flip out, not because you're not onto something, but because he wants you to get emotional and caught up in a semantic emotional game with someone, and therefore you can't do as much damage. Because a lot of times people that know that you're onto something and they're uncomfortable with it want to get into an argument because then they can write you off as, oh, you were just having a bad day and being a meanie pants, that's why you want to say what I'm doing is wrong. What they don't want you to do is to calmly say, no, this is the truth. And that's what hurts more. It actually hurts them more when you can get your point across carefully, cleverly, and peacefully, because then they got nothing on you. Then they really want to kill you. Uh, so please get over the idea that you won't piss people off, okay? And don't feel bad when that happens. What you should feel bad for is if you get snookered into the little tar baby game of arguing and yelling your head off. Sometimes, I like what Jesse Water does on Fox, even though I'm not watching Fox anymore. They're really good, and a few other talk commentators like Ben Shapiro. I think Steven Crowder's getting good at it. What you do is you wait for them to stop talking, like da, 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 and then you wait and then you say it and then you time it, kind of like it's almost like martial arts and mixed martial arts where they're blocking and you time it with irregular timing to get through their defense. So you make them think you're going for the head, you hit them in the chest. You make them think you're going for the chest, you go for the head, and you time it so then when they flinch, you wait and then they drop their guard and then you hit them. That's how I like arguing. So you'll wait for that particular time, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to crazy make, or they're trying to gaslight. They're trying to scream you down because they literally don't want to hear it. That's literally a temper tantrum, and it's very childish. And I don't know who started that mentality, but there are ways of getting around it. Um, and it is kind of cathartic to finally get it in after so many times of being shut down. But they know what they're doing. They are trying to shout you down. It's biblical, All kinds of martyrs, including our Lord Himself, had to deal with people purposefully shouting over you, hysterically covering their ears, doing all that stuff. Look, whoever said it'd be an easy, clean business evangelizing people? Okay, it isn't. Okay, the closer you get to God, the more mature and ordered your thoughts are. The further you get from God, the more immature and childish you become. I mean, that's just the way it is. Uh, well, what do you think that there's any saints that act like childish, crazy people? No. And are there any people that are getting closer to hell that are acting nice and peaceful and hearing you out? No. Which is kind of a red pill in of itself because I don't know, when it comes to trying to talk to people, the right thinks that we're dealing with the 1940s and earlier, where people could no, it doesn't work that way when it comes to immorality. When it comes to sin and immorality, people legitimately have their own stake in the game. They made a decision to be selfish in that way, and so no, they're not going to debate you with that, right? Um, that's just how it is. So that's why I criticize the debate only will get through to them, or talking about the economy will get through to them. That's not enough. You need to be much more wise. You need to really bring the spirit of God into that and really be smart and have a warrior mentality. Stay frosty, as the military says. Stay cool and wait for openings. Um, John C. says they also don't want others to hear alternative perspectives. Ultimately, they lack confidence in the strength of their own argument and ideas. Yes, we're not dealing with the city on the hill. We're dealing with the forces of chaos and selfishness. And so, this idea that liberals are open minded is not true. Not the kind of liberals we're dealing with, anyway. Welcome, Brandon. Thanks for dropping by. Um, so that being said, this guy meme analysis now he is a unique nemesis to what I'm saying. Now there are people that tap into the occult and the New Age that actually are center left or center right. One guy sticks a Hexenhammer. He's on here. He's a big I guess pro Trump anti leftist speaker, but the dude is literally a witch. Like he literally is into magic and stuff. No, I'm not going to condemn him. Maybe the Lord is using him to get through people and might bring. I pray for him. Anything is possible. After I heard this, I don't even believe that someone who's into paganism or New Age or witchcraft is on the same level as a Satanist. I do think that the intention does, warp you more. So maybe he's just misled. He is someone that actually had a very rigorous puritanical, I think, Baptist background. So maybe he said he was turned off to religion by his folks. I hope he reconciled with his parents. Um, but he and meme analysis they're leading the charge in a lot of things that I talk about. But I think their spirituality and their plus their intellectual pride is poisoning their message. I don't know if it's conscious or unconscious. I hope they just don't know what they're doing. But they have this idea that all you need to do is focus on yourself and believe in the power of individualism. Um, that is a warped understanding of individualism. Okay. Individualism in the Christian sense is defined very specifically by the tenets of the fruits of the Holy Spirit and the gifts of the Holy Spirit. And God, yes, wants people to be masters of solitude if they agree they can enter in a great life of individualism, which means you and God, God and you. So there never really is an individualism technically, but from the visible world, yes, that person is alone and able to handle it quite well. But God doesn't want someone that is, this person who only cares about themselves and thinks, huh, you idiots, I'm so much better than you, and exudes pride, and I've fallen into that trap. Okay, I used to be like that. I could be like Meme Analysis. If I wasn't Christian, I'd probably end up in his camp. I'd probably be a New Ager of some kind because I'm a very spiritually sensitive person, and I always light up. I'm always interested in people's spiritual walks and cultures and things like that, and emotional problems. I guess I'm kind of like that. The psychologists who got into psychology because they themselves are their own problems. They want to be helping those with problems that they themselves have. The shrink that sees a shrink. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But whatever the case is, um, you have to find a balance in this idea of individualism and collectivism. The balance is to follow the Lord and to be open for Him to lead you in faith, but also be open that his light will affect those around you, and that his light is the perfect answer to both the issues of the self and the issues of the world. And that's what we're doing here in our days of prayer, praying for the souls of the dead, for our family trees. So the idea is, if you look at the fruits of the Holy Spirit and the gifts of the Holy Spirit, they are the perfect instruments, that they are the perfect growth of soul to help you be alone and um, affect those positively around you, because God created us for us to rest in Him. And so when you exude that energy, that wavelength, for more new agey terms, that energy, man, it's real though. When you exude that energy that perfectly fits into your soul and it exudes to other people, that will attract them to emulate you and to seek or maybe ask questions. Okay? It's two birds with one stone, actually. If you don't have that, you just have indifferent people. You might as well just go and smoke your marijuana. um, and that that eventually falls apart. That eventually, you smoke weed while Rome burns. Um, Marijuana. That's the problem with marijuana for me. It promotes indifferentism, from what I've seen, or any sort of drugs or spirituality that has. It could be even prayer. You could be a quietist. Quietism, the heresy of quietism. You could chase the fuzzy feelings of spirituality and holiness to the point where you forget about everyone else or forget about virtue. You're just in it for yourself. That's a big problem. And what's going to happen? Well, you may say to yourself, "Well, what's wrong with that? Why can't I seek my own happiness for myself? After all, it's down to people's free wills." Well, okay, you could say that, but um, Rome burning around you is eventually going to light your own house on fire. So if you're not thinking about your neighbor, well, you won't have so much peace when the local communist dictator drags you out to the gulag, or everyone else around you is becoming worse. Let's just say you can be better than most people. You can have your stuff together. You are saner than most. Well, it's hard to be very sane. I don't know about you guys, but it's hard to be very sane without people, without a loving community. It still affects you. It's the broken window effect. It's like, man, this sucks. Like, everyone's a mess, and I'm a mess too. Anyway, I don't believe that you can so easily become the best version of yourself, Mister Meme Analysis. Like I said in the trailer, it's like, you know. Problems with loneliness and mental illness and all these issues we have, and just cleaning up your room, which I got to do, by the way. You can't see the mess, but cleaning up your room and having a nice car and having a nice little garden is like taking a little vitamin C for smallpox. Okay, it's nice. It's a good start. You may give you a window into things you can improve on, but you need something a little bit stronger for that. Especially the worse things get around here, and the more broken people get. Um, John says globalists are seeking to pacify the masses by ensuring they have their bread in circuses. Yeah, ain't that the truth? They're just out and now open about it. Many don't realize how alive the Holy Spirit is in one's life. Yeah, and that's my thank you, John. That's my final point. This extreme individualism, some of these people are these libertarian people are pushing, um, um, because looks like we have a little bit of internet connection. Oh, we're back. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Sorry, guys, I'm having connection issues there. Um, if you want to live in a world with vibrant personalities and good people and virtue and creativity, well, you better get cracking to figuring out ways to fight the opposite, because the opposite's coming. We're not in a neutral world of meme analysis. We're not in the Matrix, right? Where well, actually, the Matrix is perfect because the Matrix is literally built by this evil computer system in the movie to make everyone think everything's running smoothly, but really everyone's being harvested. Well, it's pretty much the same here, you know. Um, Plus, we should always be pushing ourselves in the area of love and compassion and truth because it's good, you know. It's in giving that we receive. You want to be filled with that energy anyway, that energy of giving, of being a servant, of being compassionate. It's good for yourself in your own times of solitude, and it's good for those around you. And it's the beauty of the thing. It's the beauty of it that is very attractive anyway. Oh wow, wow! I'm getting blinded by the light here. Talk about timing. Let me close the curtains here. All kinds of stuff is happening in the last section of this show. Okay, I'm talking about light a little bit, and here comes the light. Let me move my camera a bit as well. Eh, no, we're good. Okay. Yes, the beauty of the thing is what I'm talking about. I think that's the nature of love, the inherent beauty of doing something. I think that's what God's all about. We see that in the great minds that built Western civilization. Not very few were emulated. We see that in the passion of Mozart and Shakespeare and Johann Sebastian Bach and great scientists and Isaac Newton, Nikola Tesla. Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, other great writers and thinkers, great mystics. Okay, I've always been attracted to that. Like, what is the inherent goodness of doing something good? Right. I think that is one of the most beautiful parts of the spiritual walk. And that's another red pill. I think that in being a lover of God and neighbor, being an actual lover of God, that's what that is the ultimate prayer warrior. There's a lot of evangelicals that are good prayer warriors and Catholics that only pray because something's going wrong in the world. But I think that in and of itself is a hindrance to what we're trying to fight, which is, you know, is there divine love and peace or not? So, again, come onto this channel, and I think we do that with the contemplative prayer of the Sacred Heart. Again, it's two birds with one stone. It's not either or. God will answer the prayers. I mean, these are great. All of these things are great intentions. Whether you're praying against darkness or you're doing reparation, um, or you just want to be holier, all of these help the greater good anyway. Um, Hi, Sissy. I am streaming from New Jersey, so it's really nice right now. I don't know about where you're at. I don't know where you're hailing from, but that's where I'm from. So, Lord's blessing New Jersey right now, thankfully. But we're probably in for it in terms of the winter. See you, Margaret. Thanks for coming out. Okay, so last thing that I criticized was Alex Jones. Not as harshly as meme analysis, but I do think that that's the last issue. Okay, so when I tune into Alex Jones, when I used to go on long walks. I tuned into Alex Jones, and I'd really enjoy it. I'd like to hear it from my phone. I don't know why, but hearing things over the radio without commercial breaks is just so cool. You know, he's it just sounds like you're listening to someone who's in a bunker somewhere, you know, in the middle of the war or something, or he has the secrets of the universe. That's what I like about Alex Jones. But I don't know if he knows, or I don't know if people who listen to him know why they like Alex Jones. I don't even think I knew why I like Alex Jones. And the reason why I liked Alex Jones was because he exposed the idea of that there are actual nefarious occult forces out there doing evil, and I do believe that. Like there is no, oh, you know, they're bad but not that bad. No, like there's actual really bad people, evil people, Satanist people that want to destroy everything that's good and want to take over the world. Pinky in the Brain. I mean, like, has anyone seen that show, Pinky in the Brain? There's actual Pinky in the Brain behavior going on. Um, and that's good because it galvanizes people to come together to fight evil. You know that it's there's just something within the human spirit that rallies around that. And I think we've also had enough of the lukewarm, everything's, you know, moral relativism stuff that's falling apart. The more the truth's uncovered, moral relativism, it brings about its own heat death. It's just so like, yeah, sure. Like you can people make all these fancy intellectual arguments for it, but they're not as strong as they like to say it was, and no one deep down really feels that, you know. Um, but it is interesting. But I think what we need to harness from Alex Jones isn't just hearing it. It's yes, again, it's the two birds with one stone thing. If you've ever read Nancy Drew, okay, Nancy Drew is definitely of the older generations here probably know what that is. Now they've banned any sort of good books these days, so the younger viewers watching it probably don't know what I'm talking about. But I guess currently you have Sherlock Holmes, you have Daredevil, the Netflix show, any sort of like any sort of story where you have this person who uncovers problems in their local area, in their vicinity. Okay, the greatest appeal of Alex Jones is that you are the resistance. You can do something about this. You can get involved. Okay, there is an adventure out there, and you can be a hero. Okay, you can, even though we're all imperfect, we're all messed up, but you can do it, man. Well, that I think is the biggest, um, second biggest appeal. The biggest appeal is the fact that there's more things on heaven and earth, as Shakespeare says, that can be dreamt in your philosophy. That there are mysteries out there, that there are great wonders and unexplored things and bad things and good things. Um, you know, if only there was an Alex Jones show for a lot of the good, cool things that are out there in the universe. You know, I think that's why a lot of people get into the green pill slash red pill conspiracy theories, where people talk about UFOs and ancient aliens. There's actual Christian versions of that now, where people are saying that Alex Jones says it too, that the UFOs are interdimensional demons, and I think that's also a big appeal to it. But my point is that don't let that go to waste, okay? Don't get so caught up in gossiping about the system or what's going on out there, to the point where you're not using that excitement into something that's good. You're not harnessing it, because we need to do that. One, now we're being forced to do that by, I think the hand of God is forcing the lukewarm to get more involved. But also, I think you're just not really alive until you embrace that great adventure in life. So that's my whole spiel, and my basically this is a giant sales pitch to come on board the HHL, come on board with our morning and evening prayers and our days of prayer. Join our Facebook group where we do this kind of thing. We experience divine light and beauty and love. We experience, we get become more alive every day. We do take the fight to the new world order, and we do talk about it too. Um, if you're interested in kind of conspiracy-ish discussions like Alex Jones, maybe not as good as the way he puts it, come on out to Utopiana, 8 p.m. Eastern. Um, 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll be talking about the Bermuda Triangle. Thomas Jones, I'm kidding, Thomas, if you're listening. Thomas the Hermit will be discussing some interesting stuff that I didn't know about the Bermuda Triangle that Dr. McCall discovered, that they actually solved what was going on through the Bermuda Triangle through prayer. And I'll be talking about the even bigger problem, the even bigger Bermuda Triangle, which is the abortion issue, which definitely is probably having unknown effects and known effects on everything. Everyone's felt that there's been that's another thing. The more you pray, the more you realize, man, we were in a really screwed up world. This world is really screwed up, and I didn't even realize it. The land of the blind. But now that God's pulling you up by your bootstraps, you're like, whoa. It's pretty shocking. You're like, why is everyone so messed up and depressed, and no one wants to have kids, and no one wants to raise their kids right, and everyone's into themselves. Maybe there's more to it than we realize. Yeah, I mean, maybe there's more than just personal sin. There's demonic attacks. There's generational problems. There's the collective effects of sin. There's the lack of the alternative for evil, which is prayer. There's not that being promoted. There's all kinds of stuff beyond me. Maybe I can get out there and do something about it. That's what we want to do here. So I'll close up by reading some comments here. We're going a little bit over time. I usually try to go for an hour, but I don't want to miss out on your comments. Comic book stuff. It is kind of like a comic book sometimes. Uh, One who experiences the onset of occult attacks will have esoteric experiences of aliens. It's interesting, Pina. Yeah, I, I don't doubt all of the uh, UFO occurrences. I think some of them are made up. Some of them are government craft, but I do think some of it's real, because here's my two contentions to why they're not real. And of course now the government says they're real. They have finally declassified it, but um, one thing that the ancient alien guys said that was actually kind of true was that some angels look very strange and otherworldly, and they're very powerful. And the way that Saint John experiences them, you have Saint John Beloved. Some of them have like wheels and eyes and things, so they do look alien. So you see that there could be some crossover there. Um, but also I do think that the UFO cults. I looked into one of the UFO cults, Heaven's Gate. Right, there's a documentary on that. The occult was involved in the UFO cult, and New Age spirituality was involved in them. And some of those experiences did sound very supernatural. So maybe the fallen angels want to use Hollywood alien culture to create a nefarious spirituality that will affect people and make them, I don't know what the end goal is. But you see, since we believe the devil's so active, and God is so active, which is completely different from a lot of way people think now. We think that they're involved in everything. That's the true Christian way. Well, yeah, the devil can like take something from the culture, and so can God, and they're always fighting over, the hearts and minds of people. So yeah, the devil will definitely use. I mean, the devil uses Hollywood anyway. Why wouldn't he use, some kooky ideas about aliens? I think that there is something to that. Um, the Orthodox believe UFO aliens are demonic manifestations. Yeah, as leprechauns and fairies were. Okay, yeah, and now that's another thing. Now I'm gonna have a broadcast on shamanism next time, going more into, because I took a course, not that I learned how to do shamanism. I mean, a religion course at Duke on shamanism. I have a book, um, and I'm going to go into how there is a spirit world. There actually is. Now I think the fallen angels are the spirit world actually, and that's what God allows to. he allows religions to come from these experiences, although he doesn't he wants people to be evangelized eventually, and I think he protects them by not letting the devil completely destroy them, but he expects us Christians to give them the fullness of the truth. And so I do think that the leprechauns and fairies, which are connected to the Celtic stuff and the Norse stuff, yes, I do think that is the fallen angels with their own creating their own mythologies. Um, and it's a shame that Christians aren't stepping up to the answer to give the fullness of truth to many different religions, and that paganism is coming back because the church dropped the ball. I'm not going to go around saying, "Oh, y'all going to hell because you're not in the church." Well, what's the church doing to get anyone in the church? I got to be we got to be real here. Um, thank you, Brandon, uh, for the recommendation. Never heard of Missing 411. Maybe I'll do a review on that. Thank you. Um, so yeah, we're gonna delve more into this kind of stuff that Alex Jones likes talking about because that's what Rex in the views, and it's interesting, and you can learn a lot about the reality of spirituality, um, and what the Catholic take is on it. So I got to get going. I got work to do. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Sorry for the random blindness. Hope no one got blinded by the light there. And hope to see you all out in Utopiana.